Hello, we have two graphs. One of them is above the x-axis and the other one is below the x-axis. So if you look at these graphs, so it looks like uh, these are sinusoidal graphs. It means the equation is of the form of sine, or it could be of cosine, but it's up to you how you tackle it. If you look the first graph and you see that since it is above the x-axis, so um, the general equation of the graph is actually y1 equals to a1 sine b1x plus c1 and plus d. So what we need to do, we need to read off these four variables a1, b1, c1 and d1 which satisfy this graph. So what we are going to do, since we have y1 is a1 sine of b1x plus c1 plus d1. What is that? We need to find a1, b1, c1 and d1. We call this a1 amplitude, and we call this d1 translation along the y-axis. We call this parameter translation along x-axis. And the last parameter, which is b1, is actually the stretching or squeezing factor of the graph. Stretching or squeezing factor which has to do with the period of the graph. So first of all, we need to find a1. So if you look at the graph, you see that the deepest point of this graph is 1 and the highest point is 5. So the formula to find the amplitude is a1 is the highest point, which is 5, minus deepest point, which is actually 1, divided by 2. This is actually 4 divided by 2 is 2. So this is a1. Now what we need to do, we need to find the translation or displacement along the y-axis, which is d1. How do we find d1? d1 is actually we have the same formula, the deepest point and the highest point, but instead of if you look here, the deepest point is 1 and the highest point is 5, but instead of subtracting, we are going to add them, plus deepest point divided by 2, which is actually 6 divided by 2, which is 3. And if you look at the graph, you see that, of course, this graph is translated by 3 factors along the y-axis, which is true. Now what we need to do, we need to find c, which is actually the translation along the x-axis. If you see, this graph starts from here, and this is a normal sinusoidal graph. So there is no translation on the right hand side or the left hand side. So this factor c1 is actually 0. So we say c1 is 0. Now if now you see what is the period of this graph. If you see what is the period, it starts from here and the one cycle ends here. So if you look at this thing, so this is actually the period. So here the period is 2 pi. The period of this graph is 2 pi. Period is, sorry, pi by 2. Pi by 2. So to find b1, what we do, b1, we know the period of the normal sine function is 2 pi. We divide 2 pi by the period of this given graph, which is actually pi by 2. And if we simplify this thing, at the end of the day, we are left with 4. Okay, so we got b1, we got c1, and we got a1, we got d1. So if we plug in here, so we'll see that this is y1 is 2 sine of 4x plus 0 plus 4. Thank you.